I was 32 years old when I went through the hardest time of my life. My mother was diagnosed with breast cancer, which was a huge shock to me. I vividly remember receiving a call from the doctor telling me of my mother's diagnosis. At that moment, I felt so helpless and desperate. Despite our best efforts to seek the best medical resources and treatment options, the deterioration was faster than we expected. Soon, I realized we had to prepare for the worst. I had to face the harsh reality that my mother might leave me. As a single mother, she faced many challenges and pressures in those days. Society had a hostile attitude towards single mothers, which made her feel isolated and excluded. When I was first born, my mother considered sending me to an orphanage, but she didn't give up on me after all. She decided to leave her old city and start a new life in another one. She found a job as a waitress and did her best so that I could grow up happily. As her only son, I took on the responsibility of arranging the funeral. The night after my mother died, I lay in bed crying the whole time. I was filled with loss and sadness. My mother was one of the most important people in my life, and her love for me could not be expressed in words. During that time, I had a lot to deal with. I tried to stay strong, but every night I would think of my mother in bed. The night became a painful time for me, and I didn't have a normal rest for almost a week. One night, I suddenly felt a sharp pain start in my chest. I got up from the bed. Every breath I took brought great discomfort, and I knew I had to find relief from the pain as soon as possible. I trudged toward the medicine cabinet, each step accompanied by unbearable pain. My trembling hands struggled to open the drawer. I searched through it hurriedly, hoping to find some medicine that would relieve the pain. However, the excruciating pain kept spreading. My vision began to blur, and the sounds around me slowly became quiet. Suddenly, I lost my balance and collapsed helplessly to the ground. In that instant, I was plunged into darkness. When I opened my eyes again, I was floating above my body. I looked at the body lying there, still with a pained expression on my face. There seemed to be no longer any connection between me and that body, and I no longer felt its sensations. In that moment, I did not feel sad. It was like the clothes we wear, ready to be discarded when we don't need it. Suddenly, I noticed a tunnel appear above the living room. What happened next happened very fast, and I was moving forward in the tunnel at an amazing speed, and it kept getting faster. As time went on, I saw other tunnels begin to merge with mine, like ramps on a freeway. In these ramps, I noticed the presence of many beings similar to me. We all took the form of glowing white balls of light and moved in the same direction, toward a bright light in the distance. This sight struck and intrigued me. In that moment, I felt connected to other beings and that we were all pursuing the same goal. It was as if I had instantly learned a lot about the universe. I had no idea where this knowledge came from. I realized that the light was my destination, and it was my home. It was the place where I was created. All the emotions in me had disappeared. The anger and jealousy were gone. All I could feel was pure love. I entered into that light. There, I could not determine how long I stayed, maybe 5 minutes, maybe 500 years. Time lost its meaning in that place. I could feel millions of other balls of light experiencing similar things with me. We did not communicate with each other verbally, but understood and connected with each other in a way that transcended words. Just without any warning, I was suddenly pulled back. I appeared in a spacious white room. It was filled with a pure energy. I did not see any doors, windows, or ceilings. This room had no clear beginning or end, making it impossible for me to distinguish its boundaries. In this room, time lost its meaning. It was an infinite space, without the limits of time and space. In this room, I no longer feel hungry or thirsty. There seems to be no material need here. I still longed in my heart to return to that light. Suddenly, an angel appeared in front of me. He was almost as tall as a two-story building. He was wearing a pure white robe with delicate embroidery on it. He was wearing a magnificent golden belt around his waist, which shone with a divine light. The angel's wings shone with a seven-colored light. His wings flapped gently as if he possessed infinite power. The angel looked at me with a smile and said, "You are here again." I was very surprised to hear this question and did not understand what he meant. I asked, "What do you mean when you say I am here again?" The angel's smile was more gentle, and he explained that in the past, you had come here before. That time, you chose to return to Earth. Now, you are back in this place again. The angel's words awakened a memory deep inside me. I had once signed a contract with God. It contained a record of my mission and purpose on earth. I asked the angel, if I had been here before, why would I choose to go back? The angel smiled and replied that you have free will and no soul is forced to leave here, so I cannot tell you the reason you left before. The angel then handed me the contract. I read the contents of the contract carefully. I knew that I had many goals left to accomplish. I knew that I had to return to Earth to complete my mission. Before I left, I asked the angel if he could let me see my mother. The angel looked at me with some confusion and then said, "I have not seen your mother in this place." I said to the angel that my mother was a very kind person who passed away 7 days ago and she did not deserve to go to hell. After listening to me, the angel said, "I understand, I will take you to a special place where the newly arrived souls are gathered. They are waiting there to enter heaven." The angel guided me into a peaceful and warm place. There was no concept of time here. Only eternal existence and pure energy. A soft light pervaded this place. Many balls of light floated in the air, and they shimmered with shimmering light. Each ball of light emits a unique energy. There are no boundaries or restrictions here. It is the middle ground connected to the house of light. Although there is no sensory experience of the material world, in this special place I am able to directly feel the emotions and thoughts of each soul. It was a spiritual communication, a way that transcended words. Suddenly, I felt my mother's soul. Her presence gave me immense comfort and warmth. Our souls were intertwined. Despite the absence of physical presence, I could feel her love for me. We spent precious moments there, reminiscing about the past and sharing our inner feelings. Although the parting was still painful, I knew that in this special place, my mother no longer suffered from pain and illness. The re-encounter with my mother gave me an overwhelming sense of happiness and satisfaction. I know that I must return to Earth to complete my mission. My mother's love would be my motivation to move forward until we were together again. A powerful energy was injected into my soul. I felt my pulse begin to beat regularly and blood flow through my veins. Slowly, my consciousness reunited with my body. I felt every nerve, every muscle reconnecting with my soul. I reconnected with this material world. I felt the gravity of the earth once again. When I woke up, I was lying on the floor, surrounded by familiar rooms and furniture. Upon entering my body, I felt very uncomfortable, as if I were wearing a dress that was on the small side. Although the physical pain had disappeared, my heart was filled with sadness. I hoped my mother would continue to live and that I would be able to join her again. I longed for that bright home. This longing and loss caused me to sink into a melancholy like never before. I could not eat properly, and food lost their flavor. I could not sleep. And the nights became long and lonely. My moods fluctuated and I was unable to concentrate on my daily tasks. I'm not sure how long this state lasted, but I know it gradually waned. I began to accept reality. Although the grief was still there, it would not overwhelm me, but would become a part of my growth. I gradually regained my appetite, my sleep, and my rhythm in life again. I told a few friends about my experience. One friend thought it was just a dream and not worth much attention. Another friend thought I was hallucinating from the impact on my head when I fell. However, one friend gave a different perspective, saying that it could have been a near-death experience. Inspired by this friend, I started searching the internet for articles and information about near-death experiences. I read many stories about near-death experiences. Some of the stories were so similar to what I had experienced that it made me believe what I was seeing was real. This discovery was comforting to me because it meant that my mother had gone to a very perfect place. She has found eternal happiness there and is no longer plagued by sickness and worry. I know that she continues to exist in the world of light and that her soul is liberated. This belief gives me the strength and comfort to know that my mother has not really left me and that she is still with me. I believe that her love will always guide and accompany me. Although some people have different opinions about my experience, I have found my own answer, and that answer gives me inner peace and determination. I would like to pass on this belief to others so that they too can feel the presence of light and hope. In communicating with the angels, I was also taken back to a slice of my past life. I saw the heartwarming moments of my childhood with my mother, who nurtured me with endless love and care as I grew up. I saw the efforts and frustrations of my youthful years. These memories are so precious and real. When I was 10 years old, I had my first pet. My father went to his friend's house to play. I was at school that day, so I wasn't able to go with him. I was looking forward to his return because he said he would give me a surprise. At the end of the night, I heard the doorbell. I ran to the door to greet my dad. When I opened the door, my dad was standing outside with a smile on his face and a cute Labrador by his side. My eyes went wide and I couldn't believe my eyes. This was my first pet. The Labrador had gentle, intelligent eyes that revealed endless kindness. His tail was wagging wildly as if to tell me that he was feeling very happy too. I immediately hugged the cute puppy and it licked my cheek enthusiastically. My dad told me that his friend's dog had given birth to many puppies and he decided to adopt one for me. From that day on, my Labrador and I became good friends. I named him Chocolate because I love chocolate so much. We spent many happy times together. Every day when I came home from school, I would run to the yard to play with Chocolate. It was always there for me, both when I was happy and when I was sad. When I reached the age of 15, I hardly had time to play with Chocolate due to the pressure of school. Study and extracurricular activities took up most of the time every day. One day, I went out to meet a friend and forgot to close the door again. I didn't realize that this tiny oversight would bring me deep self-loathing. When I returned home in the evening, my father was standing at the door waiting for me. He had a shovel in his hand, and a sense of foreboding washed over me. My father told me that Chocolate had sneaked out of the house and had been hit by a truck and killed. I couldn't take the news. I went into the backyard and dug a grave. My hands trembled and tears blurred my vision. I stood quietly in front of the grave. My hand gently touched the earth on the grave. I felt endless remorse and sadness because I did not cherish the time I spent with Chocolate. After I graduated from college, I joined a construction company, and our main task was to lay pipes. One Friday afternoon, my coworkers and I were discussing going to a soccer game over the weekend. Suddenly, our boss approached us with a serious look on his face. He told us to stop talking so we could leave work on time. The boss asked me to go to the truck to get a tool, and I turned around and walked to the truck that was parked. When I returned with the tool, the truck was out of control and was rapidly approaching in my direction. I looked for a place to hide, but it happened so fast that I was too late to get out of the way. At the moment of impact, I felt a sharp pain. I was knocked to the ground by the powerful impact, and blood flowed from my arm. My body felt very cold. My boss asked a colleague to bring a first aid kit and called the emergency services. Time became blurred and distorted in this moment. Suddenly, I left my body, like an observer floating above. I could clearly see the paramedics arriving on the scene, and they were doing their best to provide me with assistance. I watched the scene with indifferent eyes. There was no fluctuation inside me, as if I was in a surreal state. Time became a blur and I felt more and more disconnected from the real world. The paramedics used cardiac resuscitation to try to restore my breathing and heartbeat. I could feel their tension. I watched as the paramedics lifted me into the ambulance and prepared to transport me to the hospital for further treatment. Suddenly, a tunnel appeared in front of me. As I entered the tunnel, I could barely see anything. As I continued on, the tunnel began to gradually become brighter. I could see tiny droplets of water shimmering on the walls, as if they were dewdrops oozing from the tunnel walls. These water droplets shimmered in the light with a colorful glow, as beautiful as jewels. After walking for some distance, I found that the sides were covered with gorgeous crystals. They emitted a soft glow. Like the guardians of the tunnel. The crystals come in many different colors. There were blue stones and green emeralds, each emitting a unique glow. I also heard the pleasant music, the sound echoing through the tunnel. It was an enchanting and serene melody, with soft notes intertwined. The tunnel became brighter and brighter. As I emerged from the tunnel, I was surrounded by a large bush of wildflowers. These flowers were blooming in the most vibrant colors. They swayed in the breeze as if they were dancing with joy. They were the most beautiful flowers I had ever seen. They shone in the sunlight and gave off an intoxicating fragrance. I felt their vitality and beauty. Each flower was like a work of art. A fragrance permeated the flowers. I walked along this sea of flowers, enjoying every moment. I gently touched the petals and felt their soft texture. In this beautiful place, I felt the peace and beauty. All worries and cares were forgotten. On the opposite side of the field, I noticed a man walking toward me. He was wearing a pair of pants and a shirt and looked very neat. What struck me as odd was that he was not wearing shoes. As he approached, he smiled at me and said, "This place is beautiful, isn't it?" Although I've heard of people communicating through their minds during near-death experiences, his lips were clearly moving. "Where are we?" I asked him curiously. He smiled and replied, "There is no specific name for this place, but you can call it heaven." The man continued, would you like to go for a stroll with me? I nodded my head. As we continued to walk forward, a small house suddenly came into view. The house was simple and welcoming, surrounded by beautiful natural scenery. Next to the house flowed a narrow stream, the clear water flowing slowly and making a soft flowing sound. The man suddenly blew a loud whistle. I saw a dog running toward us from a distance. I recognized it immediately, it was Chocolate. I thought I would never see it again. My heart was filled with joy and surprise. Chocolate rushed towards me, its tail wagging wildly and jumping up and down in excitement. I was pounced on by the chocolate and it started licking my face. The man smiled at me and said, "I can see that it really misses you." I shuddered and whispered in reply, "Me too, I thought I would never see the chocolate again." I picked up a stick by the river and the chocolate immediately stared at it excitedly. We began to play a game, and the sound of joyful laughter echoed along the creek. Here, I spent a happy time with Chocolate. I don't know how long I stayed in this beautiful place. The man turned toward me and smiled and said, "Ready to go back?" Confused, I asked, "Where to?" "I want to stay here." He explained, "Sorry, it's not your time yet, so you have to go back. But don't worry, the chocolate will be here for you." I was so lost, I didn't want to leave it. Although my heart was full of reluctance, I knew that I had to go back. I nodded my head silently. The man reached out his hand and gently touched my shoulder. An overwhelming warmth was transferred to me. I felt a vortex that was surrounding me. Before I left, I took one last look at the chocolate, which sat quietly among the flowers. I bid it goodbye, grateful for the joy and companionship it had brought me. I was surrounded by a soft glow and felt like I was returning to the real world. The return process was accompanied by a feeling of lightness and peace as my soul gradually returned to its original place. My consciousness gradually cleared up and I began to feel my surroundings and the sensations in my body. I could hear the faint cacophony of voices in the hospital room. I slowly opened my eyes and saw the doctors and nurses beside me. My heart was filled with gratitude. I understood that the beautiful paradise was not an illusion, but a special experience that I had personally experienced. I saw my father standing by the bedside, nervous and full of concern. He reached out his hand and gently touched my cheek. "Son, you are awake." My father's voice was tinged with excitement. I smiled and nodded my head. I wanted to sit up, but the doctor told me that I could only lie down now. My lower leg had been fractured and needed further treatment to return to normal. I would have to have another surgery before I could walk normally. The doctor scheduled me for the surgery. On the day of the surgery, I was wheeled into the operating room and the smell of sterile water filled the room. The doctors and nurses were busy preparing the surgical instruments and equipment. The surgery took 3 hours. Over the next few weeks, I received specialized rehabilitation care and physical therapy. My calf muscles became weak from the long recuperation and walking became difficult. However, I insisted on daily rehab and gradually built up muscle strength through targeted exercises and workouts. I gradually regained the ability to walk, and I felt very relieved and satisfied. When I returned home, I shared my experience in heaven with my family. However, they didn't act like they believed it. They thought it was just a hallucination or dream that I had while I was in a coma. To me, that experience was so real and profound. I was not interested in religion, so I did not see Jesus or angels. However, I did visit a beautiful and peaceful place. I believe that one day, when I finally leave this world, I will meet with Chocolate again and we will be together forever. I also understand my family's thoughts. I hold that experience close to my heart, and it has become a source of strength and inspiration within me. I want to pass on some comfort and hope to those who have lost their pets. Animals will find their own paradise. I want to tell you that animals have souls too, and they have their own paradise. There, they are free from pain and disease. For those of you who have lost your pets, I hope you will keep the love you have for them. Although they have left us, their souls are still connected to us. The bond we have with our animals is unique. They are an integral part of our lives. Past, present, and future. They have taught us to love unconditionally. Their presence is a precious gift that brings us laughter and companionship.